that is sweet. Hi everybody, welcome to our videos on how to jazz up your table saw. And I thought one of the nice ways to show you what a great difference it can make to have a rail guided sliding table and a rail guided precision fence to make to your table saw. And a great way to show that is through this little corner cupboard that I built last week and this little triangular shelf. The interesting thing about this is that this represents the backbone of that cupboard. There's 9 shapes like this that make up the structure of that framework for the corner cupboard. And I can't think of a better way to be able to cut them and make 9 duplicates than on a sliding table. Basically what you do is you take your piece like this. Now initially, of course, when it's glued up square, you have this sort of a look where your boards, you get there, and that gives you a clamping space as you edge glue up your panels. So what you do is you run your long edge through your joiner. That gives you a dead straight line for your reference point. You can then take this, put it on your sliding table, move your fence to 45 degrees, use your hold down, clamp it in place, slide it through the saw with total control. Take it over, now you have your straight line here from the joiner, your straight line here at a perfect 45 degrees from your sliding table, flip it over 180 degrees, put it back in, do the same thing, run it through. You've got 45 degrees here, 45 degrees there, perfect 90 degrees there, and dead straight line there. Gives you a perfect way to make multiples of shelves like this. Let's go over here and we'll take a look, see if it fits. All right. Oops, I got it backwards, I think. Whew. Nice. So just briefly, as you can see, as I'll tilt this back, you can see this corner cupboard is made in 2 pieces, which was the traditional way to do it. Because of course, particularly with country pine furniture, these pieces were moved a lot, and it's much easier to both to move and to build them when you make them in separate pieces like this. So we have the top 1, 2 shelves and the bottom of the top component, that's 4 shelves. Then on the bottom part we have the top and the bottom, that's 2, and then this little circular tray drawer you can see. There's a bottom, there's a piece here, and there's a shelf down there, and then there's a little false bottom, which is fun because you have a little safe, if you will, for your papers or money at the bottom of the cabinet. So that's 9 triangular shapes, all done, all cut on the sliding table, and it's a slick system. I really like it. You know, a couple of years ago when I retired, I got rid of my big cabinet saw, and I dragged out my old Delta contractor saw, which you see here in the center, and said, well, you know, I still do some projects, most of it's smaller like this, corner cupboards, armoires, kitchen cabinets, that sort of thing. So I wanted to be able to do that kind of precision work, but I didn't have the room anymore for a big, huge table saw. So this I created, has a much smaller footprint. It's on casters down below here. I can take the sliding table component here off with held on by 2 bolts, hangs over there by the bookshelf, and I can slide the rest of the saw over, tuck it right next to it, and it's out of the shop here during the summer months when I get going on my outdoor projects. And when I looked around at sliding tables, and I've had a lot of them, everyone was lacking something for my needs. So I did a little research, and I actually went to a woodworking show, and I was looking at the CNC display there. And they had these wonderful hardened steel rails with linear guide blocks for CNC, and I said, you know, if I could find a source for those, I can make those work for my upgraded table saw. And sure enough, it did. Worked like a charm. What you have here is a platform. It can be open like this, or on my other saw, actually I had one with a plywood cabinet under here. And then you attach your rails on top of that, and then you build a sled to to accommodate your needs. Now, in my case here, I went 18 inches by 27, which happens to be the depth of my table saw, but you can configure it any way you want. So what I thought I'd do here with these videos is show you how I put this together, how to set it up. I will have links to the various components that I found. You can order them through there or your own sources, whatever you can find. And it's got a nice aluminum fence, adjustable 0 to 45 degrees, pivots on this point here. We've got our solid old classic cast iron table saw in the center here. I rebuilt the arbor on that, put in a little bit bigger motor, 2 horsepower, and built a complete cabinet for it so that this section of the saw, as you see here, is all one single unit. It's all bolted and screwed together and with wood components so that the side table becomes integral to the table saw. Now, let me get this hold down out of the way. You'll see here, this is the same sort of rails that we had over there with the sliding table, only this time the rails are sitting on top of the guide blocks, and you can see the fence here glides back and forth like that on those rails, locks in place with one finger. It's a really nice system. I designed this one for this saw, so I have a 36-inch fence, but the nice thing about this when you build it yourself is you can make it as long or as narrow as you like. My other saw, I had one that was 42 inches because it was a slightly bigger saw and a bigger top, and I wanted the support as I run my pieces through. But this works great for this saw, and it'd probably be about right for most homeowners and small shops, 36 inches. It's got the guide rails here. You see, you can move it with one finger. I've got a Starrett self-adhesive gauge on the surface here. I've got a little magnifying cursor. I can set this easily using the thickness of a line as my accuracy, which is probably 1/100 of an inch, which is really nice. Lock it in place with one finger. It's not going anywhere. It's a real nice system. So what I'm going to do is, in a minute here, we'll take a break, and I will slide this off, we'll flip it over, I'll run you through the assembling of this, the various parts, the layout of the bearings, because one of the fun things about this is you notice there's nothing here. So that when I have my sliding table, got my workpiece here, and I step forward, I'm not running into any rails or beams or any support system for the sliding table. It enables me to stand right here over it, control the workpiece as it slides through the table saw, and gives him a real accurate cut. One of the problems with some of the other sliding tables you'll see out there, some of them are very accurate, but they tend to be huge, number one. And number two is you've got this framework around your shop. Now, if you have a huge room or you have an assistant to help you, maybe that's all right. But I find with this, for the kind of cabinetry I do and furniture I build, this works like a charm. It makes it easy to handle with one person at the controls. I've got this set up. I've got about 26 inches from the front of my blade to my fence. And of course, you have to have it set up so your stroke goes all the way through the blade. But the nice thing about this system I came up with is you can, depending on the lengths of these rails you put on your platform, you could have this come 3 or 4 feet in front of the saw blade and of course go the equivalent distance on the other side of the blade. Very nice system. Same thing with the fence. You can set this up. This happens to be set up for, I've got about 30 inches of clearance with the fence at its furthest retraction point. And so it gives me 30 inches on the right side of the blade, and I've got out into space here easily 48 inches or 60 inches to the left. So it's a very nice system. A quick note too about the larger sliding tables that are designed to cut sheet goods, 4x8 plywood or 5x5 Baltic plywood. And the problem with that is that if you're a single worker in your shop, hoisting around a 4x8 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, particularly if it's pre-finished, which is all the rage now, the tendency to get it nicked or dinged as you move it around the shop is great. So what I did is I'd use this same idea outside here in the carport with these rails and a sled counterweighted mounted vertically rather than horizontally, and I can take my plywood right off of the truck, slide it right onto my framework, cut right through the blade. I dare say it's more accurate than the panel saws you see at Home Depot, which cost $6,000 or $8,000. So it's a slick system, so it enables me to cut my panels down to a workable size, plus or minus an eighth of an inch. Then I can bring them in here to the table saw, and with this size sliding table and the fence here, I can work with the panel in a reasonable thing and get a great deal of accuracy with the fence. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll stop this video at this point. We'll come back and we'll address the sliding table construction, and then I'll do another video taking you through the building of the fence. I think you'll find it fun. It's very cost effective compared to the costs out there for the big commercial units, and it'll give you a degree of accuracy I doubt if any of your buddies in the woodworking industry can duplicate. So that's all for now. We'll do the rest later.